Once upon a time, in a magnificent kingdom, there lived a handsome prince. He lived in a grand palace and often wondered when he would marry a true princess. He had traveled to nearly every corner of the world, but nowhere could he find a real princess. The prince met many princesses, but none of them were genuine. He longed for a true princess, with whom he could share both his joy and sorrow, and the palace he called home. He explored the entire kingdom, meeting almost every beautiful young woman who claimed to be a princess, but none were real. Disappointed and disheartened, the prince returned to his palace. During lunch, his parents, the king and queen, asked if he had found a true princess for himself. The prince replied, "It seems impossible to find a real princess among all the maidens I have met." Hearing this, the king patted his son on the back and said, "Don't worry, my son. Be patient, and soon you will find what you desire." Saying this, the king went to his chamber, and the prince did the same. That evening, a thunderstorm began. Dark clouds covered the sky, thunder roared, and lightning flashed. The rain pounded on the palace roof so heavily that it sounded like hundreds of horses galloping into battle. At that moment, there was a loud knock at the palace's grand door. The king put on his royal robe and went to open it. Standing before him was a young woman dressed in ragged clothes, completely soaked from the rain and shivering from the cold. "I am a real princess. May I borrow some dry clothes and have a bed to sleep in tonight?" the young woman asked. Seeing her condition, the king felt pity for her and allowed her into the palace. The queen inquired about the young woman, and the king said, "She claims to be a real princess, asked for some dry clothes, and wishes to stay the night." Hearing this, the queen muttered to herself, "We shall soon find out whether she is a true princess or not." Shortly afterward, the queen gave the young woman a nightgown and said, "Go and change out of your wet clothes while I prepare your room." Then she instructed the servants to prepare the bed with thick sheets, blankets, and heavy mattresses. Before placing the 20 mattresses on the bed, the queen placed a garden pea on the bed frame. Then she ordered the servants to stack the mattresses on top of the pea, separating each layer with a soft, warm blanket. When they were done, the servants informed her, and she told the young guest, "Your room is ready, my dear." When the young woman entered her room, she was surprised to see the bed towering high above the ground. Still, she used a ladder to climb up, covered herself with the blankets, and blew out the lamp. All night she tossed and turned from one side to the other. The next morning at breakfast, the queen asked, "Dear princess, did you sleep well?" The young woman replied, "Oh, not very well. While I am grateful you let me stay the night, it felt like there was something very hard underneath my mattress. It was so uncomfortable that I could hardly sleep a wink." "Is that so?" replied the queen. She then turned to the prince and, pointing to the young woman, said, "I believe we have found a real princess for you. No one but a true princess could have skin sensitive enough to feel a garden pea through my thick mattresses and fine blankets. You must marry her at once." The prince was overjoyed and filled with happiness. He turned to the princess and asked, "Dear princess, will you marry me and give me the honor of calling you my wife?" The princess blushed and said she would marry him only if one condition was met. "Anything you say," the prince replied immediately. The princess then asked him to promise that, from that day forward, no pea in the palace would ever be used for sleeping, only for eating. Hearing this, the prince smiled and said, "My dear princess, I promise." The princess jumped from her seat and immediately accepted the marriage proposal. Soon after, they were married and lived happily ever after.